We survived day one with no Dodger baseball. There was some rumblings, though. The Cardinals open for business. Might there be a third baseman out there that the Dodgers could use? The Dodgers are going to open the next season in a different country. We'll talk about that when and where. And, is it time for Dodger baseball again? Because we're still here waiting, but there's a lot to get into, anyways. That's what we're going to talk about. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you can subscribe and you can listen and you can become an everydayer by listening every day, Monday through Friday. If this is your first time listening or watching, you're not quite an everydayer yet, but you can get there. But either way, I'm Vince Samperio. That's my co-host, Jeff Snider. We're both lifelong Dodger fans that have been in multiple ways covering the team, watching the team, being living, breathing Dodger baseball. And we're here to bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to thank you, Jeff, for holding it down. All-Star Week gets crazier the longer you're in this game. And I was actually invited to events and stuff this year that I didn't get to do in LA last year. So it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it on TV from my couch with my family. It would have been fun to be there like you were, but I enjoyed my experience quite a bit. But yeah, it's nice to have you back. And I want to ask you, sometimes in that intro, you mentioned that we've watched the Dodgers all over the country. How many different stadiums have you watched the Dodgers play in? Not counting spring training.
So every NL West is 5, Chicago, Milwaukee, 6, 7. I think that's it. 7, and then Monterrey, Mexico. So
8. Okay, not bad. I think I'm only at 5 because I've obviously Dodger Stadium and then both Padres stadiums and the Angels and the Rockies. That's it, because my goal is to root for the home team in every stadium, and so I can't go when they're playing the Dodgers until I've already been there to root for the home team. So my next goal, all I have is Minnesota left on my first goal, and then my next goal will be to watch the Dodgers play in every stadium. My wife and sons have actually been to when I haven't been, because they went to Game 5 of the 2021 NLDS in San Francisco, and my daughter and I were at home. So they have me beat on that one.
Yeah, there you go. All right, but we got a few things to get into. No Dodger baseball, like we mentioned. The Dodgers did make a small deal. They acquired Tyson Miller from the Brewers for cash considerations. Tyson Miller from the Brewers might become somebody we talk about in the future, but the big deal with this move was that they moved Daniel Hudson to the 60-day IL, which essentially doesn't end his season, but just the way Roberts kind of mentioned it, and now that it's an immediate 60-day IL stint, I don't know if we're going to see Daniel Hudson again this season.
Yeah, and I can't tell if that's news or not, because we knew he was going to be out a long time. Dave Roberts said at the time of the injury that he hoped to see Daniel Hudson back this season. And so realistically, this is probably the same timeline. But yeah, the fact that they're committing to at least 2 months so early isn't great news for sure. Tyson Miller they must see something in him. I can't figure out what it is, because even in the minor leagues, he didn't strike anybody out. His strikeouts per 9 in the minor leagues is only 8.7. In the big leagues, it's 5.4. And they have plenty of relievers who don't strike guys out already. I feel like they need to go the other way. But Evan Phillips was nothing to write home about when the Dodgers acquired him for nothing too. And he turned out to be pretty good. So maybe Tyson Miller is the next Evan Phillips, or maybe he's the next, name a guy who the Dodgers got, and then Tanner. What was that dude's name who pitched earlier this year? Taylor Scott.
Taylor Scott
Taylor
with the E at the end.
That's right. I knew some generic white boy name, Taylor Scott. And it's we're going to forget that dude existed. I already have, apparently. So we'll see if Tyson Miller turns into the next Taylor Scott or the next Evan Phillips or somewhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's two extremes. if we talk about if we talk about Tyson Miller again, it's either because he came up and did really bad, or he came up and he's actually doing something worth talking about.
Or because they DFA'd him next week when they need the roster spot.
Yeah, true. Although we didn't talk about when Ricky Venasco got DFA'd and he cleared waivers and he's in the minors.
Yeah, so he stayed in the organization. So they knew what they were doing there because they traded an actual person for him, and then they waited until I think he was hurt, and they waited until I think they're analyzing other teams' rosters and say, okay, who might be interested in him, and do they have room on their roster? Okay, looks like it's safe to DFA him right now. He'll probably clear waivers. So I think that's probably an underrated part of the Dodgers front office.
True. Let's move on to, well, I guess somewhat news because it came straight from the Cardinals president of baseball operations. This is the quote from him. He said, "Right now, I can tell you we're going to trade people. Just don't know if it's going to be household names or guys who are more likely to not be here next year." We'll start off with the household names, and it's Paul Goldschmidt and it's Nolan Arenado. While Paul Goldschmidt is still a really good player, was MVP last year, unless he learns a new position, the Dodgers don't really have space for him because JD Martinez and Freddie Freeman, what you would have to give up to get Paul Goldschmidt, I don't think you would give up in order to put one of those guys out of a spot. But the one name that is bigger, maybe, he was an all-star this year, Nolan Arenado. He still has time on his deal. But again, if the Cardinals want to decide to build a different way, or realize that, hey, we're not that, they barely made the playoffs last year and we're not that good with Arenado and Goldschmidt, maybe they decide to put him on the market and see what they can get for him.
Yeah, and, they could view it as kind of like a HGTV house flipping kind of show. Hey, we got Nolan Arenado for nothing. The Rockies paid us to take him, and now we flipped him for some prospects after getting, some good production out of him for a couple of years. It's if they could get quality trade for him, I think his return would be a little bit limited just because there's a lot of money still owed to him. And interestingly, his defense this year has been bad. He has not been nearly the defender that he's been throughout his career. And, it could be a glitch, just a blip on the radar. I remember in 2018 when the Dodgers got Manny Machado, I don't know if you remember, his defense had been a little bit bad that first half of the season. And then he played really good defense for the Dodgers when he was there. And obviously is still he was at shortstop with the Orioles and the Dodgers in 2018. He then went back to third base, and he's still an excellent defensive third baseman. But Arenado, maybe he just snaps out of it. Maybe needs to change the scenery. Maybe he struggles playing defense when his team sucks, although he was good defensively for the Rockies. So you'd think he'd be used to that. But yeah, it's so maybe, if the price is right there, obviously I'd love to have Nolan Arenado on the Dodgers. You then just bump Max Muncy back to second base, and then you have basically your lineup is set. Mookie is in right field against left-handed pitching, and against right-handed pitching, Mookie's at shortstop, and boom, you've got your Nolan Arenado fills some holes. And even though the Dodgers' current hole isn't at third base, because other guys can play multiple positions, it fits. And he's having, not his best season ever, but I mean, he's got a 129 OPS plus, which is very good. He's hit 19 home runs. He's actually only struck out 66 times so far this year, which is, it's more than, it's a higher strikeout rate than last year. But at its, sometimes I feel like Nolan Arenado ought to strike out more than he does, because he's got that same AJ Pollock, JD Martinez susceptibility to the slider on the outside or just outside the zone. But he finds a way to not strike out very much. His strikeout rate is below average, meaning better than average in the league. So yeah, I would love to have me some Nolan Arenado for sure.
Yeah, and with the struggles of Miguel Vargas, and we've talked about this before, other than a first baseman, a DH only, or a catcher, the Dodgers can look for any other position out there, and all they would have to do is find an upgrade between either one, Miguel Rojas, or two, Miguel Vargas, which at this point is not that hard. An upgrade wouldn't take much. So it's open, and everything's open. And obviously, I'm sure the Dodgers will at least ask and see what the Cardinals are looking for. And honestly, I mean, the Cardinals are kind of in a weird spot. They've had a weird year. They've had a weird couple of years. The guys aren't developing like they're used to. I don't know what they'd exactly be looking for. But as you talked about with Otani the other day, the Dodgers can trade a lot of prospects and still be really good and still be a top 5, even 10 at the bottom farm system, which I don't think it would cost that much for Arenado anyways.
Yeah, and the Cardinals probably have some pitchers we could talk about in the next segment.
Yep, that is exactly what we're going to talk about in the next segment because he said household names or guys that won't be here next year. And, there might be some of those guys that the Cardinals have. So that's what we're going to get into. And now we talk about Sleeper because today's episode is brought to you by the Sleeper app. Do you want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head to Sleeper where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. What are fantasy baseball picks? Well, you pick a stat and you pick a player or multiple players or multiple stats and you try to decide what they're going to do. Will Freddie Freeman homer tonight? Then you would pick Freddie Freeman to homer tonight. Will Mookie Betts homer tonight? You pick Mookie Betts to homer tonight. And hey, if they both happen and whatever amount of money you put on it, then you get 100 times that payout. So it's not a bad deal. You can put hits, you can put strikeouts, you can put a lot of different things that you can check out on the Sleeper app. All you got to do is download it, check it out, and you can win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball. And you can pick up to 8. So you can really put down, you can put, hey, you know what? I'm going to put $1 down, but I'm going to pick 8 people. And if I win, I'm going to get $100. That's not a bad return of investment. So go check it out right now. You don't only have to pick Dodgers, but why wouldn't you pick Dodgers? It's probably the team you know most about. So get your picks right, and you could win big. And right now, Sleeper app, you can use the promo code Locked On. You'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. So that's a 100-time payout and a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It's currently operational in over 30 states. So check out Sleeper today. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we have a new episode, and you can become an everydayer. Remember, you can listen to the Dodgers home broadcast for any game on SiriusXM or the SXM app. All you got to do is search for Dodgers, and you'll get the home broadcast for every game in case you can't watch. You can also find us on there if you search Locked On Dodgers. But, Jeff, like you mentioned, the Cardinals have some other players that might be intriguing to the Dodgers. And, nobody that's maybe going to make this team an instant World Series contender, but a few guys that have potential to help out in big ways, especially when it comes down to pitching.
Yeah. And, the rotation, I don't really know that, because Jack Flaherty has been kind of their big star starting pitcher the last few years. He's not having a great season. Part of the reason the Cardinals are having a bad season is because their pitchers aren't pitching very well. Their best starting pitcher this year has been Jordan Montgomery. He's got a 3.23 ERA and 103 innings pitched. And he's just signed through this year. He hits free agency after this year. So he's a possibility that, he's not going to be a front end starter, but I think he could be useful. And then in the bullpen, you got a couple guys. You got Jordan Hicks, who throws 1,000,000 miles an hour, does strike guys out. Maybe that's funny. He has a 13.5 strikeouts per 9, but when you throw 105, even that feels like it should be higher. And the big concern there is he's got a 5.6 walks per 9 too, which is why he has a 3.93 ERA. Similar boat as Hennessy Cabrera. He's got 10.3 strikeouts per 9, but 5.3 walks per 9. Another guy, he's a lefty guy, throws crazy hard, doesn't always know where the ball's going. Both of those guys would be interesting to me if the Dodgers went after them. It obviously, I think Hicks is a guy that the Cardinals value pretty highly. So we'd have to see what the return ask on him is. But I think they've got a couple parts that, that the Dodgers could use to plug some holes for sure.
Yeah, like I said, it's nobody that's, a game changer, but the Dodgers don't necessarily need a game changer. Obviously, that's always going to be welcomed and ideal, but they need guys at this point, especially in the pitching side, to fill innings. And, if the guys are healthy and they're pitching well enough, we've talked about, at this point, all we wanted from Noah Syndergaard was, bottom of the barrel, number 5 starter, like 4.5, maybe even a 5 ERA, give the Dodgers a chance, especially with offense. some of these guys can do that. Again, if they value Jack Flaherty higher than the Dodgers value him, then there won't be a move. But he has had, overall, his season hasn't been great, but he has had last 7 starts, he's been better. In the ERA hovering around 3. His last 2 starts, he hasn't allowed a run. Went 6 innings each time. So there's room there for him. There's a guy like Jordan Montgomery, lefty, who's 3.23 ERA on the season and 18 games started. Doesn't strike out too many guys, but is solid enough, can give him innings. And if it's cheap enough, when they got, I think when the Cardinals got Montgomery, they got him for J Happ or a weird deal where they kind of swapped 2 lefties. It's one of those where some of these guys, if they end up being cheap, but you just need the innings, then it's going to work out the way. Especially with the fact that the Dodgers have 2 clear some roster spots, because coming up in this, it's not a matter of clear it to clear it. But if you can get something that helps for a guy that probably wasn't going to survive the roster crunch come November, then it might be worth it to make that move now.
Yeah, I wish Ryan Helsley was healthy, because he's a guy I'd love to have, but he's still got a few years of team control, and he's on the injured list with a right forearm strain, which doesn't sound like great news for a guy who throws really hard with his right arm. So who knows? He's not going to be traded, because if he has any trade value, it's not right now. The Montgomery went over in the Harrison Bader trade. So
that's what it was.
Yeah. But yeah, there's stuff out there, and Cardinals are one of the first teams to really declare that they're going to be sellers. The White Sox are obviously going to sell, but they haven't.
I don't think I've ever heard of someone say we're going to trade people.
Yeah, I think it happens.
Not like straight up out like that.
Usually it's teams that are maybe doing. I mean, the Cardinals are doing really, really bad. They're in last place in a weak division. Usually it doesn't have to be said, I guess, because, like with the White Sox this year, we know the White Sox are going to sell. We know that if the A's have anybody that anybody wants, they'll be willing to trade them. So they don't have to declare that they're open for business. But a team like the Cardinals, that they have that expectation every year of winning, it's kind of jarring to have them selling at the trade deadline.
Yeah, exactly. But again, that's now All-Stars over. We move into the next part of the year, which is trade deadline, rumor season, trade season. If I'm the Dodgers, I got to think about, hey, let's try to make one deal at least early. And, you wouldn't necessarily set the market, but you don't have to, it doesn't matter, because you already got who you needed to get, and if somebody gets traded, let's just say, a team overreacts, trades for a starting pitcher, gives up 2 top prospects. Well, not every team's going to want 2 top prospects in order to do it. It's kind of like when they have the negotiations with Greinke. Like if they had offered him before the season a large amount of money, he might have taken it. But then after the season, they got outbid because, the Diamondbacks gave all the money. Not to say that Greinke deal was a mistake or anything, but I'm just saying, like, in general, if you can get out ahead of the market, you can help yourself out. So I do wonder now, if, with this being said, do the Dodgers try to jump in early and make that move, especially considering that, they need the innings kind of right away.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah. The last part of the episode, we're going to talk about the Dodgers playing in Korea next year to start the season. We'll be playing in Seoul, South Korea. We'll talk about that. They're playing against the Padres. Talk about that. Talk about the rest of the games that MLB has planned outside of the country. And then finish up talking about DJ Uyangalele, who the Dodgers drafted number 20 overall, or 20th round overall for them, not number 20 overall. And why they drafted someone that is supposed to be a big-time college player this season. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. And guess what? Bird Dog, if you're looking for something that makes you look good, Bird Dogs are there for you. They got shorts and pants. I'm going to talk about shorts because I'm a shorts guy. And being a shorts guy, and especially somebody that travels and for work and things of that nature, for baseball, I've kind of been trying to buck the trend of what sports people are supposed to wear, like polos and pants and everything else, and nice and shiny shoes, stuff like that. I'm out there in t-shirts, might have a pocket on it. I'm out there in shoes, and I'm out there in bird dogs sometimes, and they're perfect because they don't look like some random jinky shorts you got somewhere else. They look like some nice shorts, maybe even some, golf shorts, which people that write about sports might appreciate, so they don't give you as many looks. And Bird Dogs are there. They can help you in any situation. They're versatile. Like I said, I can wear them when I'm covering the Dodgers. I can wear them when I'm going to the beach. I can wear them to a cookout. I can wear them to dinner. Like, there's a lot of different uses for them. So Bird Dogs are there to help you out whenever you need them. And now that it's starting to get hot in Los Angeles or maybe wherever you're at, they fit great. They're not stiff. They're loose. They have the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. There's a lot of different ways Bird Dog can help you out, and you should go check them out. And if you do go check them out at birddogs.com, make sure to use the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB, or enter the promo code LockedOnMLB. You get a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Back and ready to talk about the final things we're going to talk about. But first, just want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening every Monday through Friday. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe and make sure you're notified every time we have a new episode. You can also listen to us on SiriusXM or the SXM app if you search Locked On Dodgers, which is where you can listen to the home broadcast for every Dodger game. SiriusXM or the SXM app, just search Dodgers. All right, Jeff, last part for today, the Dodgers. We heard rumblings of it and rumors and reports of it maybe about a month ago or so. The Dodgers and Padres were likely to start the season in Korea next year. Now it's official. March 20th and 21st, the Dodgers will be playing in Seoul, South Korea against the Padres in part of 4 cities the MLB is going to outside of the U.S. and Canada, part of their 2024 World Tour. What were your initial thoughts on this, Jeff?
I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's pretty awesome. It'll be kind of like 2014 when the Dodgers and D-backs opened in Australia, which is same part of the world, roughly the same distance, I think, from LA as Seoul is. So they'll go there, they'll play a few games, and then they'll come home and have another week of recuperation, probably a little more spring training. I'll probably have the freeway series after the Korea series. So I remember it was weird that time in 2014. They had major, regular season games, then some minor or spring training games, and then they started the regular season.
Adrian Gonzalez was the MLB stolen base leader for a while.
That's right. Yeah. Clayton Kershaw's back tightened up on the plane back from Australia. He missed a couple weeks, but he ended up winning the MVP that year, so it turned out okay. I think it'll be awesome. Obviously, the Dodgers have a rich history with Korea. Having Chan-Ho Park was I think the first Korean-born player. Yeah, I'm looking right now. Chan-Ho Park was the first one. And since then, obviously Hyunjin Ryu. Who else have they had? They've had Chin Lung Hu. Is he?
He's Taiwanese.
Oh, that's right. He's Taiwanese. I'm looking through the list of Korean players. Oh, Hee-Seop Choi, the illustrious Hee-Seop Choi. This is twice this week we've talked about Hee-Seop Choi. That's a big week for Hee-Seop Choi on Locked On Dodgers.
Yeah, bro. The year he made it was because MLB was trying to promote the World Baseball Classic, and they got all the people from different countries.
Okay. He also had that 3-homer game that,
Yeah, I was at that game. That was crazy.
Yep. I think because of Chan-Ho Park and Hyunjin Ryu, I think there's probably a pretty healthy Dodger fan contingent in Korea. And then you have Ha-Seong Kim for the Padres, who's probably the best current Korean player. And so that's exciting for him to get to play. Who else would be in the running there? Ji-Man Choi, I guess, and Ryu. But Ryu's been injured so much lately. Having Ha-Seong Kim get to play back at home is exciting for him, obviously. So I think it'll be pretty decent, right? I think they picked 2 good teams, the Dodgers and their history and the Padres and their current ties to Korea. I think it's a great matchup, and I think it's a lot of fun. I think anywhere they can play Major League Baseball, they should do it, except for Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fun. Korean fans take baseball very seriously. They've kind of struggled the last couple World Baseball Classics, but I still remember Japan Korea final at Dodger Stadium was one of the most electric baseball games I've ever been to. So it's real out there. It'll be fun. I'm definitely going to start petitioning for them to send me out there for work in order to experience that. I was supposed to go to Australia the first time around as a part of a graduation present, but then I ended up getting a laptop instead, and I should have went the other way. But either way,
you should probably petition for them to send you and your photographer, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, like I said, it'll be fun. The other countries that's going to be played next year, the most random matchup ever: Astros Rockies in Mexico City. Unless there's some contingent that I don't know about.
Vinny Castilla played for the Rockies.
True.
And obviously Houston is down relatively close to, not to Mexico City, but to Mexico in general, the Gulf of Mexico anyway.
Yeah, the Astros makes more sense, but Rockies
Vinny Castilla is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Then you got the London series, Mets and Phillies. Yeah, NL East matchup, I believe. And then there will be some spring training games played in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, between the Red Sox and Rays. So, baseball's starting to expand. It's fun. I don't see an issue with it. I don't have an issue with it. And, should be a good time for the Dodgers, other than the long flight that I've already looked into, and it's a pretty long flight.
Yeah, for sure. Ismael Valdez, he pitched for the Rockies for a while after the Dodgers too, didn't he?
Dodger legend. Yeah. So, I guess there's some connections. But real quick before we finish up, so the Dodgers drafted DJ Uiagalelei with their 20th round pick. He is currently supposed to be the quarterback for Oregon State. Before that was the quarterback for Clemson. He was number one and number two with Bryce Young, who just went number one overall in the NFL draft. He kind of didn't do it in college. And Billy Gasparino, Dodger scouting director, said that they believe it's a serious thing. They're not, it wasn't just a wasted pick. Obviously, they know if he has a good year in football, he's probably going to stick with football. But if not, they're monitoring him and do want him and see some potential there. So an interesting pick. And like I said, some people might have issues, but then after about round 5, maybe round 10, every pick you're making is kind of more of an educated guess or a flyer than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And his dad did say that baseball was his first love. And the fact is he's obviously a great athlete. He was throwing mid-90s in high school. And so when you have a football player who can throw mid-90s, it's obvious that you're going to sometimes think, what could we do with him if he focused on baseball? And 20th round, it's a perfect time to take a flyer. I told somebody on Twitter, I wouldn't be surprised if he has the best chance of making the big leagues of anybody taken in the 20th round, because 20th round is when you take guys who aren't prospects. He's probably the best athlete who was taken, the best player taken in the 20th round, at least the most potential.
He's got the size, he's got the arm strength. It'll just be a matter of if he does well and the Dodgers bring him on. But I remember covering him from my last job, just making a few videos about him. So I know a lot about him. And when I saw that they drafted him, I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. But his career hasn't panned out quite in college football, but we'll see what happens.
Yep.
But we'll have more draft talk either later this week or maybe into next week, probably with our guy, Future Dodgers, Justin. Again, he knows a lot more than we do. We're giving him some time to finish out his research because the Dodgers did draft a handful of high school guys, and those guys usually don't have as much info on them, especially when you get into later rounds than some of these other guys. But there's draft talk coming. There's one more day off today, and then the Dodgers start in New York over the weekend. That's going to do it for today's episode, Jeff, unless you have anything else, Jeff.
No, that's it.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube and on the SiriusXM app, which is also where you can find Dodgers home broadcasts if you search Dodgers SiriusXM or SXM app. We can be found on social media as well, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. The DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. To My Device Pipe Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.